now me pe de wa dang mi drel wa jor chi. May ring jack dang ni dang drel wei tang nam la ne par jor chi. Okay. Now we go to page number 14, the Heart Sutra. So we'll read this in English out loud together. So it starts off, beyond words, beyond description, prajna paramita, unborn, unceasing, the very essence of space. Yet it can be experienced as the wisdom of our own awareness. Homage to the mother of the Buddhas of the past, present, and future. In Sanskrit, the Bhagavati Prajna Paramita Hridaya. In Tibetan, Chomden Dema Sherabgi Paro Lu Tu Shimpe Nyingpo. And in English, it's called the Heart Sutra. Now we read. Homage to the essence of the transcendent knowledge, the Bhagavati. Thus I have heard. Once the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of monks and bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi, which examines the dharmas, called the profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the 5 skandhas and their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should those noble men and women learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? Thus he spoke. And noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, answered the Venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, those noble men and women who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this. The 5 skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is emptiness. Emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, concept, and consciousness are emptiness. Feeling is emptiness. Emptiness itself is feeling. Emptiness is no other than feeling. Feeling is no other than emptiness. Perception is emptiness. Emptiness itself is perception. Emptiness is no other than perception. Perception is no other than emptiness. Concept is emptiness. Emptiness itself is concept. Emptiness is no other than concept. Concept is no other than emptiness. Consciousness is emptiness. Emptiness itself is consciousness. Emptiness is no other than consciousness. Consciousness is no other than emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no concept, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no dharmas. There is no quality of sight, and so on until no quality of thought and no quality of mind consciousness. There is no ignorance and no wearing out of ignorance, and so on until no old age and death, nor their wearing out. In the same way, there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment for the Bodhisattvas, they abide by means of transcendental knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear, They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment by means of transcendental knowledge. Therefore, the mantra of transcendental knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, should be known as truth, for there is no deception. The mantra of transcendental knowledge is proclaimed. Theata, Om, Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Buddhi, Soha. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva, mahasattva, should learn the profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from the samadhi and praised the noble bodhisattva, mahasattva, Avalokiteshvara, saying, well done, noble son. It is so. It is just so. Profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. Then the Blessed One had said this. The Venerable Shariputra and the noble Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering, and the world with its gods, men, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. So thus ends the Mahayana Sutra called the Bhagavati, Essence of Transcendent Knowledge. And then we recite the mantra. So the mantra, Theata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Buddhi Soha, loosely means Theata, this is it. Om, the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. Gate means gone. Gate again means gone. Paragate means really gone. Parasamgate means really, really gone. Buddhi, to Buddhahood, to the Buddha, really, really gone to the Buddhahood. Saha means so be it. So this is the mantra of letting go, of releasing, of cutting through dualities, cutting through the five skandhas, cutting through all our preconceived perceptions, cutting through all our habitual tendencies, cutting through the Vipassana meditation. So that's why this is so important, because this leads us to that perfection of our Buddha nature that is within ourselves. So now we'll recite this, and we'll recite this 21 times. Theata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Buddhi Soha. 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 Deyata 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 Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Buddhi Soha. So now a short quiet meditation. Contemplating the meaning of this mantra. This is it. The body, speech, and mind of the enlightened ones. Gone. Gone. Really gone. Really gone to the Buddhahood. So be it. So contemplate the meaning of this. When your mind wanders, just bring it back to the mantra. Either recite it quietly to yourself or to the translation. We'll have a short meditation. Yes. All that time I was talking and you couldn't hear. Sorry. I've got a switch on my microphone. And it's easier to get to that switch than it is to turn off the muting. So that's what happened.
Only 2 minutes.
Yeah. Well, you could have turned your microphone on and told me. Okay, sorry. Well, I was only saying that this practice, this Heart Sutra, is a very profound practice. And it's something that you can do yourself anytime very easily. And it's very, very good to make many accumulations of the mantra. Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Buddhi Soha. And to make accumulations with your mala beads, do 10 mala rounds or 15 or 20 mala rounds, and you will begin to have that transcendent experience. So it's a very excellent practice.
Elaine, a quick question.
Yes.
Is it okay if we do accumulations without the mala?
Well, sure. But the reason why we use the mala is to be able to keep track of our accumulations.
Right.
And it's part of the skillful means. It's part of the method. And if we have a goal and we say, okay, I'm going to accumulate 1,000 recitations today. If you don't have the beads, it's very easy to not accumulate 1,000.
Right. Yeah, it's just the reason I'm asking is because, you know, sometimes when I'm working and I'm using my hands, I cannot use the mala. But what I'm doing is I time myself kind of like how long it will take me to go through a mala doing a certain mantra. And then I just set my timer for that. And I go and I put a few extra minutes just to make sure that, you know, I have enough mantras. But it's just a way, I guess, my way to do that.
Well, I think that's fine. But the question I have about that is, are you developing one-pointed mindfulness while you're doing something else?
Well, I'll ponder on that.
Yeah, like some people I know like to recite mantra while they're driving.
Right.
And for myself, I need to concentrate on driving. You know, so, and when I'm doing mantra, then I want to be focused one-pointedly on that practice that I'm doing. So that's me personally, that's the way I look at it. I know some people might view it differently, but I think the goal is to be able to develop one-pointed mindfulness. So if your mind's wandering while you're doing some chores and to bring it together by doing the mantras, I think that's good. But whether that really accumulates as one-pointed mindfulness, I would question myself about that.
Mm-hmm. So you're just saying that whenever we do mantras recitation, we should just like do that alone and nothing else, right?
I think that's where the real benefit is, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Does anybody else have a comment on that? Okay. Okay. Well, you know, as we say, it's we each have our own practice of developing our own practice, and so whatever works for you in a given situation, then it's all good.
Yeah. The only reason I said that is because, if I'm doing a lot of work and it's just kind of like repetitive to where it doesn't require, my attention, it's just like muscle memory. I can go through mantras and doing recitation and, I can do that with no problems. If there is, a more difficult task, then to me it's pretty obvious I can't do it, and I just I'm not going to do it. But yeah, I think my question was more like if we can do it with other means other than Damala.
Well, that's fine. Yes. That's fine, yes. And like when I do prostrations, I like to time myself rather than using the mala bead to accumulate prostrations.
Okay. Thank you.
And you made me think of one thing, and that is I've observed, lamas doing tasks like you just said, like when they're building a sand mandala, or they're doing some other chores around the Dharma center or something like that. They're always reciting mantras. So whether they consider that to be an accumulation for a day's accumulation or something, I don't know. But I think what it does help to keep their mind pure, that they're not thinking about, discursive thought, other thought, and so on. It's keeping them focused.
And that's what I do with me. Sometimes I just say it just for bringing my mind back to task, and, not engaging in other, just like kind of like giving in the, day-to-day flow of the mind.
Okay.
Yeah, Lance, I think that's an excellent way of keeping, instead of doing idle talk, just senseless talk. I think it's great just, reciting mantras, and trying to keep focused on that, and because when I'm walking my dog for an hour and a half, I'm constantly reciting mantras in my head, constantly. When people look at me, they probably look at me all strange because my mouth's constantly moving as I'm walking my dog. And it's wonderful. I mean, any task you do, it's better than just idle talk,
Totally.
To have that, at one point of mind.
Right. Yeah, and you see people, that's one reason why the wrist malas are so popular with a lot of people, because they can quickly take them off and they can use them, to help them focus on, reciting the mantra and so on. Some people wear them for fashion, but maybe you've noticed that.
Yeah, but there's a purpose for these things.
Yeah.
And I do the same, like they does, like when I'm driving, I recite mantras, or when I put water on the plants or whatever I do, I like to recite a mantra. Sometimes Gilberto look at me and say, "What do you say? What are you talking?" Nothing, but now he knows I do mantras all the time, but he's like, "What are you praying or what?" It's like, oh, now he doesn't say anything, but I do the same, or driving or whatever I do. I even when I take a shower, I do my mantras. Like, oh my God, maybe it's not a good idea, but I do everything with mantras. Yes.
Well, that's good. That's great. Yeah. Thank you. Very good. Okay, so let's get back to talking about Vipassana. So just to kind of review very quickly, that Vipassana is insight meditation. And these insights arise while we are in calm abiding meditation. It's important to begin with the calm abiding meditation. To get to the calm abiding, if you remember, we go through the 4 thoughts to turn the mind to the Dharma. We go through the method, loving kindness. We go through the method, compassion. We go through the method, bodhicitta. So we're going through those parts. We may go through them very quickly, depending on our degree of concentration. But we get to calm abiding, at least for however long we need, until these insights come up, these thoughts come up. And some thoughts come up that are everyday kind of mundane thoughts, and we can marginalize them. We can say, I don't need to worry about that. I don't need to think about that. I can write down a note to myself that I have to call somebody, or that I have to go do a chore outside the house or something like that. And then I can forget about it. It's not terribly important. But what we're talking about, these insights that come up, are thoughts that come up that pertain to your Dharma practice in some way or another. Maybe it's an affirmation, something that, oh yes, I was thinking about this and I had some experience with this and I'm thinking about it. Or maybe it's something that comes up that is a difficulty. And how do I deal with this difficulty? And then, well, I learned how to do this, I learned how to do that, and is this the proper thing for me to do? So with the insight meditation is investigation. That's the key part about it, is investigation. That when it comes up, we analyze. We look at what caused this thought. What is the substance of this thought? What are the different variations of this thought? What should I do with this thought? What should be the result of this thought? And can I transcend? Can I leave this thought behind? Can I bring this thought in? And whatever that result is, can I make that part of my path, part of my embodiment of the solution of this thought? So this is the part of the Vipassana, the investigation. The second part of the Vipassana after the investigation is the resting. The resting in that calmness of that peace of mind that comes from a wisdom. A wisdom. In calm abiding, it's just that we have just kind of quieted our mind, we've quieted around us and so on. There hasn't been any investigation. It's a different kind of a space. But in the Vipassana resting, it's much more of a higher awareness of oneself as a practitioner, as a yogi or a yogini, as a deep practitioner, someone who has been able to accomplish a wisdom awareness and a series of wisdom awarenesses. One of our great teachers, Khenpo Samdup Rinpoche, who actually is the translator of the Jewel Ornament of Liberation and many other books that we use, he says that Vipassana is the path to critical insight. Critical insight. Sometimes the Vipassana has a great deal of intention to it. You know, we say sometimes, well, I'm going to meditate on that. Somebody brings something up to you and it provokes some thoughts in your mind that are high thoughts that you want to be able to understand. You say, I'm going to meditate on that. So this is developing a critical insight on a particular topic. There should be a subtle point of Buddhist philosophy, something of the Dharma. So you may have an intention that you want to do to study that. And you may have a bunch of notes. Maybe you've got notes from a teaching. Maybe you've got a book or two that's open, something like that, that's right near you. But before you get to that investigation, you still go through that sequence of the four thoughts that turn the mind, meditating on love, meditating on compassion, meditating on bodhicitta, calm abiding. Then you get to the insight. Then you get to that critical thinking. So that stuff that you were doing before is preparing you for it. Sometimes you'll find that what that question might be that you want to investigate is answered by these other steps. Sometimes you see it's that easy, it's that simple. And that maybe we were, confusing it, making it more discursive thought than it needed to be. But sometimes you get back to this thought, and now you need to be able to look at your notes. You need to be able to open your books, and you're reading, but you're reading and you're thinking. It's contemplating, it's deep contemplation. And sometimes maybe you've had an experience where you're sitting there and you read something, and for the next 5 minutes, you're just lost in the thought. You're just lost in space. Maybe it's no thought, or maybe it's something that you begin to look at all the myriad parts of what that thought was. All that is Vipassana. So it's all good. And we need to be recognizing how we do this and why we do this. So This is called the path to critical insight. So, so the goal is developing non-conceptual meditation. Non-conceptual. The thoughts that come up are going to be conceptual because thoughts are conceptual. It's what the mind does. We talked about this last time, that the mind, the function of the brain, the function of the mind is to think. That's what it does. And it's very difficult to control, very difficult to turn off. So we don't really try and turn it off mentally or physically. It turns off on its own accord. It just rests by itself. We exhaust all those conceptual thoughts to, oh, there's nothing more on this topic for me to think about. I've exhausted all the possibilities. I'm just going to allow myself to rest. And that's what we do. That's the second part of the Vipassana, that resting meditation. It comes from the exhaustion of the thoughts. So we call this non-conceptual meditation. So having thoroughly examined the selflessness of the person and the selflessness of phenomena until there's nothing else to look at. So last week we talked about this selflessness. The self means that there's an individual, that there is something special, unique about this individual, or that there's something special, unique about something that is external to the individual, that this phenomenal nature is self-existent itself. We're not existent. The phenomenal nature is not existent. It's all just a play of the mind. It's all just observations and appearances of the mind that we bring together to create this world that we live in. So the non-conceptuality of this, another way of saying this, is the selflessness of the person, or the selflessness of the self, and the selflessness of phenomena, that all this is impermanent. All this is transcendent. Oh, that's the wrong word. All this is temporary. All this is temporary. So when we can adopt, when we can see, recognize that point of view, then we become non-conceptual. So we rest in this state beyond concept and beyond analysis, this resting. One naturally enters this state beyond conceptual and beyond analysis, a state of oneness, beyond expression and without fabrication. So oneness itself is a concept. So we need to be aware of that. But when we're trying to describe it to ourselves, when we're trying to explain it to someone else, we say, oh, I had this experience of being one with everything, of everything being inside of me being inside of everything else, and there was this sensation of oneness. So this is a concept, and it's helpful, to be able to identify, but it's even beyond that, to recognize that any word that we can use, any thought form that we use is a concept. And what we're trying to do is to go beyond that, And we don't recognize that we've done that we're doing that until after it's over. When we come back into our regular conceptual mind. And then you catch up with it and you say, oh, geez, just for this time, I wasn't having any thought. There was nothing there. There was no thought. I was non-conceptual. But then what brought you out of it was maybe an emotion came up. Maybe it was the awareness that you're sitting here. Maybe your legs started hurting. Maybe the phone rang. Many different things can bring you out of that non-conceptuality. But we can go right back to it. If we got there we know the way back there. If we're pulled out of it for any number of reasons, we can get back there. So having that system is how we get back there. Sometimes we have to start at the beginning and work our way through. Sometimes we can just say, oh, I just had the thought that I wasn't thinking. Oh, let me forget that thought. Let me just let that thought go and just go back into my non-conceptual, transcendent mind. And then another period of time goes by and you have the same experience over again. And our meditations can become a series like that, where, let's say, for instance, you're meditating for an hour or a half an hour. And then during that time, you're having these short little periods where you have that experience of no thought. So you have these short little, few minutes at a time. But then over time, as you do it more and more sessions and so on, you find that those periods become longer and they become deeper. There's another way of expressing it. These are conceptual ways of trying to explain that which can't be explained. But you understand the point that time just goes away. And that you may have a timer or something, and you realize, oh, I just spent, 15 minutes like that, or 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, or 1 minute, whatever it is. But you see that the more proficient you become at it, the better it is for you to do it, the easier it is for you to do it, and the longer time it takes and so on, and the more benefit there is. When you come out of it, the clearer you are, because now you're bringing that with you. And some people might say, maybe you've had this experience where you've done meditation and people are talking to you or something like that, and you seem spacey. We use that word, spacey. Where did that come from? Well, it comes from being that kind of mind. Some people get spacey by getting drunk. Maybe they take pills, maybe they smoke some pot or something like that. They get spacey, but that's all dependent on something else. But being in this clear mind, being in this non-conceptual mind also means that you don't need to be thinking all the time about all this stuff around you. And you're just abiding in your true nature, which is quiet, which is peaceful, has no thought. So then someone says something to you and you hear, nah, 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 nah. They're saying something, but you don't hear what it is. You're not paying attention to them. But they're sitting right next to you. And you say, what did you say? And then they tell you, and you say, oh, okay, and you have some kind of a response or something like that. But in the beginning, you might say, oh my goodness, I'm so spacey. Well, we can celebrate that. That's a good thing. The Buddha mind, that when we recognize our Buddha mind, and this is part of that Buddha mind, this is what that is the Buddha is aware of all things, but isn't attached to any of it, nor does it have any aversion to it. There's no attachment. There's no aversion. It's totally awake, but it doesn't have to be paying attention. It's not emotional to it. It can be the focus can be brought in, but the focus is there's no focus. It's just open until it's requested to come in. So we develop this technique of how to do that over and over and over again. And then we find that then we can start having this experience almost any time. We become so adept at it. And that's when it can become dangerous. Like I was saying about, I don't like to recite mantra when I'm driving because it's very easy for me to forget my driving. But I'm driving, sometimes you can be doing driving and not thinking about it. And then, you're not paying attention. And that's when an accident happens, when you're not paying attention. So you got to be very careful with that and take total responsibility for that. So that's my point about doing these things. It's one thing to be reciting these mantras and to be thinking these things to keep you from going to negative thoughts, discursive thought, confused thinking, and so on. But it's another thing, if you're going to be doing it for the sake of a meditation, that you really need to be in a safe and secure place where you can't harm yourself or anybody else if you're not paying attention. So it's a very important point. Okay. So this was a state of oneness beyond expression and without any fabrication. It doesn't take anything for us to do that other than the sequence of things that we do. It's not a fabricated thing. It's not something that we contrive. It is something that we attain when we remove all the blockages. You've heard me talk many times about, our true nature is like this diamond. But we don't recognize the diamond because it's all blocked up with our emotions and all these other things. But once we expose the diamond and it's totally open, it's unfabricated, now it just becomes this light. It just becomes this wisdom. It just becomes this unfabricated nature, uncontrived, this purity. So thus we meditate in a crisp clarity, resting in the suchness nature itself, the suchness nature, this word suchness and thatness. This is the way it is. This is the true nature of what it is. It's such like this. So it is. And the phenomenal nature is part of that, but it's only a small part of that. It's only when we need to focus on that. But there's this other suchness that is beyond all of that. Thatness. So thatness and suchness. So we abide in this state, remain in the continuity of mind without any distraction. So here we're using the concept word mind to describe this, but it's beyond that which we might think of as mind. Usually we think of mind as the intellect. Sometimes we can think of mind as, we say, the big mind, our spirituality. And that's a concept. But when we experience the non-conceptual, we see that it does not include the mind. It is beyond the mind. We come back into the mind. And when we come back into the mind through a distraction, through something interrupting us, then we become conceptual again. So by doing this over and over again, by practicing this, we begin to familiarize ourselves with this process. And this is what meditation is, familiarization. In Tibetan, the word for meditation is gom, G-O-M. And gom translates to familiarization. We're familiarizing ourselves with the thus gone mind, the thus goneness, the thatness, this suchness. So this is all part of the Vipassana method to be able to attain this. So now in the non-conceptual resting meditation, this is the second part of the Vipassana. When you're new to meditation, you look nakedly at the mind, not seeing anything real, nature, and you'll have the experience of being in this state of emptylessness. Emptylessness. You're not even, the empty is not there. Emptiness itself is a concept that we use to talk about the phenomenal nature. But that goes away in this rested mind. So this experience of being in this state of emptylessness. So we're looking nakedly at this. So there's no artifacts to it. There's no color to it. There's no covering to it. There's no way to describe it. It is beyond all of these elaborations. It's all non-elaborated. So we just let our awareness rest naturally in this state. Relax your awareness there. in this clarity of awareness where there is no object of meditation, no point of reference, nothing to attach onto as being unborn. We use that expression, the unborn nature of the Buddhas. Well, this is, to say it's unborn is a dualistic term. It means that it can be born. So this is beyond that. Nothing to suppress, nothing to do, nothing to latch onto is either empty or not empty. Just rest the mind. So the more that we become proficient with it, the easier it is to be able to maintain it. And when it's lost or our focus has to be on everyday mundane things, the easier it is for us to shift back to this naked mind awareness. That we can do it like that. Maybe it just takes a couple minutes. Maybe just a few recitations of a mantra. Teata Om Gate Gate Parasam Gate Bodhi Soha. And bam, you're right there. All of a sudden, time goes away. Space goes away. You go away. Everything around you goes away. It's all gone. That's our goal. That's what we're trying to do. As human beings, this is the best that we can achieve. This is supreme samadhi. How long we can make it last is going to be dependent on our practice, how adept we are at this. But this is the mind of the yogis. This is the mind of the siddhis, the siddhas. The siddhas are those who have this mind of the bodhisattvas. This mind of non-expression. So once you've gotten a little more adept at the practice, whatever arises and whatever appears, you will only need to look directly into it. You will not need to put any special effort into resting your mind beyond this. This is what I'm talking about. When you gain greater accomplishment in the practice, you will be free of any grasping at meditation or object on which to meditate, and therefore you will be free from any contrived or effortful meditation. So you become completely, as we said, naked. You don't need anything. This is why, learning these prayers, being able to recite these prayers without the need for books and so on, without the need for notes and so on. We're developing one-pointed mindfulness. We're developing the skills that are required for us to be able to let it all go. So the true essence, the ultimate meaning of all the myriad collections of Dharma teachings, in essence, is just this: the original mind, unmodified. There is no higher practice than sustaining this. Someone brought to my attention that another definition for Vipassana is unabiding, unfettered, unabiding. It's not dwelling. It's neither dwelling nor not dwelling. It's beyond that. It's unfettered. It's not connected in any way. So here there's no higher practice. Here it says original mind, unmodified. Whatever arises, let it arise without grasping onto it. The grasping at duality of self and other is the root of samsara. So we see that when we are able to attain this, and we see that when we're pulled out of it, it is like being pulled down. The term, oh, I'm so high. It comes from, this transcendence. It's beyond anything. We're using a relative term. It's high. We used to talk about that when we would, get like this, we would get this big head. in the beginning. You get this big head and you feel like you're going to walk through a doorway and your head is going to get caught in the doorway because you're so open. You know, after a time that becomes a joke. But when it first happens, it's, oh yeah, that really does kind of explain the experience. So it need not be said that grasping at the negative side, like the three poisons, the mental states of desire, aversion, and ignorance, is problematic. As this is clear, not even grasping at the positive side, such as grasping to view, meditation, and conduct, become an impediment to liberation. What this means is that we can be thinking about the five poisons. We can be thinking about the five things that are the basis of all the emotions and so on. And they, without too much of further understanding, know that that pulls us down. But we can also get attached to that big head. We can also get attached to our thinking, oh, I'm such a wonderful meditator. Oh, I'm so high. Those things can pull you back too. And they will pull you back. But they can be much more subtle. And you think, and you can go on for a period of time, and then you develop a pridefulness about it. I'm so good. You know, but you know what happens with pride? Pride comes before a fall. That you can reach a level that you don't expect, and then something happens, an accident, something that you weren't paying attention to because you're so enamored with your highness that bam, all of a sudden you get pulled back and there can be great suffering. This is the problem that the gods face. The gods get so happy, so pleasure with their godliness and their being able to have just pure wisdom and not paying attention when all of a sudden everything leaves them and they have this precipitous fall that they go right back to the lower realms. Because there were so many things that they had avoided and ignored that now come back to them. So we have to be aware of that pride comes before a fall. Arrogance, conceit are all indicative of that pridefulness. So we need to remain humble. We need to remain pure. We need to remain simple. We always need to be grounded in this world of what we are doing, who we are. In this grounded world, we can still be enlightened. Being enlightened does not mean that we have to drop our body and that we have to die and we have to float up to heaven someplace. It's really not like that. It's characterized as that. It's even characterized like that in some of the Buddhist culture, but not in the Dharma teaching. So we have to be aware of that. We have to remain grounded. We talk about that there is the ground, there is the path, and there is the result. The ground is where you start. My goal is to be enlightened, to be liberated. I want to get there. And for me to get from my ground to my liberation, to my enlightenment, I have to follow this path to get there. Well, being on the path is where we need to be. That's where all the work is done. But we find that from our ground, being on the path, and then when we reach the goal, when we reach enlightenment, we find that enlightenment was there at the ground the whole time. We just didn't recognize it. We didn't know how to deal with it. But once we get there, now we see, oh, this is enlightenment too. I can be enlightened here. I can be liberated here. I don't need to drop my body to do that. We do this in phases. We do this in stages. We don't automatically go from the ground along the path and get to enlightenment, to liberation. We don't do that in one lifetime. Not most of us. We got to go through many lifetimes to get there. We go through these stages. So what we have to recognize is whatever degree we can get there now is wonderful. And we have great gratitude for that. What great gratefulness for that. Very happiness for that. And we dedicate that to the enlightenment of other beings. But we may not get the whole way. We may have glimpses of it. And we're grateful for that. But we see that it's a process. And we see that it's here now. And we see that the things that bring me back to, samsara are my imperfections, my defilements, my confusions. But now I recognize them, and now I have a way to be able to deal with them, to overcome them, to work with them, to diminish them, to transcend them, to the point where those conditions that are pulling us back continue to rise up, but now we're immune to them. We're not contaminated by them. Not that we're isolated from them, but we're inoculated from them. We've taken the vaccine. We've taken the Dharma medicine. And now we don't have to, we're not susceptible to the attachment, to the aversion, to the hatred, to the jealousy, to the envy, to the pridefulness, to the greed, to the delusion, to the ignorance. All those things and all the different ways they come up. So all these things, so the bad things come up, the good things come up. But we see that they're all part of the dualistic nature of being a human being. This is the human condition. This is our human nature. So it's a question of how we deal with it and whether we can be transcendent. And the Vipassana is the way that we cut through. Anybody got any questions or comments? Okay. Anybody need a break? You want to stand up and stretch your legs or anything? Or we'll just continue talking. I got more stuff to talk about here. Is this a good topic?
Yes, it is.
All right, good. So now, some observations. So no matter what arises, do not grasp onto anything. We look into the things and we let them go. We don't follow the thoughts, we let them go. So this is the supreme path. This is it. Tayata. That's what Tayata means. Tayata. This is it. And you'll notice that on some of the most profound of the mantras that we recite, and the mantras are the words of the Buddhas, are the words of the deities, his statement of being, his or her statement of being. And those most profound say, Tayata, this is it. This is how to do it. Relying on this method is beneficial in dispelling confusion. Whenever your mind wanders in distraction, such as when desire arises, pacify this distraction and quickly bring your mind back. So when your mind is distracted, when you can attain these levels, like I said, and then you have these distractions, you know the way back. So we have a balance. There should be a sense of balance. There should be a sense of bliss, blissfulness, peacefulness that all around us is in bliss, that we are part of the bliss. It's all here now. You know, when we go outside and it's a really nice day, it's 70 or 80 degrees and the sun is shining and there doesn't seem to be a cloud in the sky, and you have nothing to do and you're just sitting there in the sun for a time, and you feel like you're just part of everything and everything is part of you. There's that blissful feeling. There's no separation between you and other. It's all the same. Nature, you are nature, nature is you. And that it becomes spontaneous, that there is a spontaneous presence that is part of this. There's this balance. There is this blissfulness, and there is the spontaneity, the spontaneous presence that is there. When your sense of humor becomes more apparent, when you can laugh at very simple things, when you can laugh at very difficult things and say, that doesn't bother me anymore. I don't know why that ever did bother me. And everything, you see a humor into everything. You become very spontaneous. And maybe it's sometimes you see a difficulty with someone and you spontaneously respond to them without any thought, without any attachment, without any expectation of having some kind of a result. That you have this spontaneous presence, and then invariably you say or you think the correct thing that is so profound, such profound wisdom, that it cuts through whatever difficulty there is that is in the mind of that other person or group of people or situation that you're in. There is a clarity there. There is a spontaneous presence. It brings to mind, to me, you know, when you hear about heroes, and sometimes, you know, somebody, you know, they're in an automobile accident or something like that, or you're driving behind somebody and up in front of you is this accident. And without you thinking about it, you get out of the car and you rush to those people and you try and get them out of the car. Or somebody is drowning in the water. They're having trouble in the water. And without thinking, you jump in the water and you go and try and save them. It's that kind of spontaneity that I'm talking about, that hero quality. You know, sometimes it's not as gross as that. It's not as physical as that. Sometimes it just may be the meditation, the being able to send out that spontaneous love to them, that spontaneous compassion, that spontaneous bodhicitta from your heart into their heart. And it's real. It's not like it's just some make-believe kind of thing, that there is this thing, you know, that you have this spontaneity, this presence, that they respond. And they may not know you. You may recognize it sometimes. You know, we talk about synchronicity. You know, sometimes you're thinking of somebody and they live 3,000 miles away or 1,000 miles away or something like that. And all of a sudden, they call on the telephone. Because you two have this spontaneity of thoughts coming together. It's kind of like that. It happens in many different ways. So these 3 points, this balance, this spontaneity, this blissfulness, are all observations of this state of mind, of Vipassana resting meditation, and being in that naturally, very naturally. It is the natural state of mind, what we call mind. So whenever you notice the mind to be unhappy, seeing the qualities of samadhi cultivate happiness. So we call this state, we call this like a samadhi. A samadhi we would usually think of as a very deep meditation. But we can get to the point where we keep the samadhi even though we're doing all these other things. We take the samadhi, we take the meditation with us when we get up off the cushion. So then when you see the mind that could be unhappy, the samadhi just completely absorbs it. And whatever that unhappiness was, the cause of that unhappiness just gets absorbed by the samadhi. It's neutralized. And when you start to get sleepy, you notice mind is sluggish and unclear, focus your attention on a happy, positive object, as described above, and pacify the lethargy of mind, focusing extremely intensely on the meditation. So this has to do with meditation. When you're sitting in meditation and maybe you're getting sleepy or you're getting agitated, one or the other, to whatever degree, you use the samadhi to be able to overcome, to be able to neutralize that lethargy or that anxiety. So we use, it says, when it's sluggish or unclear, focus on attention to be happy. And when you're being agitated, then just calm down, just settle down, take a deep breath, settle down, do some more mantra, do something to ground you a little bit more. If you're resting mind evenly and you push too hard or put too much effort, that also will become a cause for mental distraction. So if we're pushing too hard, if we're trying to make this happen too much, it should be very natural. For the best results, it's very natural. Sometimes you have to move through. Sometimes you have to have intention. Sometimes you got to move, but sometimes you hit a wall, so you have to be a good guide for yourself and say, oh, today it's not going to happen, but don't lose heart. Tomorrow is another day. Or maybe I just need to get up and go have a drink of water, come back, maybe do some prostrations or something and come back and start to practice over. And maybe that will allow you to break through whatever it was that was the problem, the obstacle. So, mental distraction. If you are sinking into lethargy, don't push too hard. That will become a cause for sinking even deeper into lethargy. So if you're getting lazy, you don't want to say, oh, I'm going to take a week off. That might be too much. Say, okay, maybe I need to end my session today, but I got to do it again tomorrow. I got to get right back into it. I can't take a week off. You take a week off now, you got to start back and you got to go through everything. Sometimes you do that. Sometimes that's the right thing to do when you take a vacation or something. But you have to be the guide. And by doing this, daily, doing this regularly, you begin to develop the innate ability to recognize all these different facets, all these different things. And you know how to move through them. You become an experienced practitioner, and then a practitioner becomes a yogi. That even though you take a break, you're still a yogi or a yogini. Yoga means to be in union. So even though you're not doing the immediacy of the practice, you still are in union. You haven't lost it. So for a practitioner, it's not quite there. You have to come back and you got to develop the practice over and over again and do that. And that's okay. We're grateful for that. But it may take years as a practitioner to get to where you can think of yourself or you're being called a yogi or a yogini. So don't push too hard. Just let it come naturally. Maybe it won't happen in this life. That's okay. The karma that you have created in this life will come right back in another life. And it's not going to be a life as you are right now. It's going to be very different. So rest in that. Don't think about that you're going to be, you know, the reincarnation of yourself in a better way or something like that. You can say that you're part of this transpersonal, this experience that's flowing through us all. That's a concept. But it's a concept that keeps us one-pointed mindfully in a direction that keeps us from falling away into nihilism, into nothing matters at all. So we have to have wisdom, how to be able to bring all this together. It's a whole lot. There's a lot of little pieces that all fit together. And in the center, they all intersect with each other. Everyone is intersected with each other. When we talked about the 12 links of interdependent origination, in the center, all 12 links are connected. But around that, then these three are connected here, those three are connected there, those four are connected here, these two are connected with those three, and there's all combinations. So we become aware of how that works. We begin to see that. So it says, your mind will become as if blind. And therefore, if your mind sinks into lethargy, apply effort. So when we're agitated or something, we just want to become peaceful. We don't want to be blinded. We just want to be peaceful. Sometimes, you know, you get so much going on, you know, you can't see anything. You know, things get so busy, things get so overwhelming that you can't focus on anything. It's like you're blind. So just need to relax, to rest, use the practice, use the system. Look, I've been practicing for years and years and years. And just very recently, I got overwhelmed. There's a lot of stuff going on, you know, and you know, with the coronavirus, and we're all home, but you know, we're doing these Zoom things and everything. And I'm busier now than I've been in a long time since I was working. I've been retired for 12 years. And I really was busy. And I got to this point where, you know, wow, I kind of felt like I was just overwhelmed, you know, and that feeling of blindness came to me. I just read it here, you know, it just triggered this thought in my mind that I couldn't focus on anything. And I said, my goodness, what am I doing? You know, this is crazy. I shouldn't be like this, you know. So, but it's here. I got to deal with it. So what did I do? So I came into my room and I started doing practice. I started doing 100-syllable mantra. That to me is something that helps me cut through difficulty immediately. So I did a mile around, a whole mile around. It takes 25 minutes, 30 minutes to do a mile around. And I was able to relax. I used the practice. I used the wisdom of the practice to help me to cut through this blindness that I was having, this confusion that I was having. So it happens to everybody. It happens to anybody, you know, at least at my level. And I'm not, you know, I'm ordinary. I'm just making the point that it happens to us all, and we shouldn't be upset with it. We just go back and use the system.
Lance.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. As you're talking through this, you know, I have a few thoughts coming to my mind. This is part of the gradual path, right? Vipassana.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like gradually recognizing your own Buddha nature, right?
Correct.
And so, as a practitioner, I'm assuming that the changes that take place are not all that dramatic. And how does like someone know that you have the right, you have the correct results, and that you're staying on the path? You know, because on a daily basis doing the practice, the changes might be minuscule, right? And somebody's mind might not detect that as a result of the practice, but it can, translate into, oh, it's just something else. It's the same me. So how can someone be more aware of this results? Like,
I understand.
Yeah.
Well, there's several ways. One is that you, a certain condition rises up that you usually would be very distracted by, or maybe you would be very drawn to, and it's not bothering you. That you're maintaining a peace of mind through that. And you may recognize yourself, not being attached or not having aversion to that. That, 6 months ago or a month ago would have driven you crazy. Now it's not bothering you. So that's one thing. Another thing might be somebody says something to you and says, you've really made some changes. I can really see that you're much quieter, you're much easier to get along with. I used to not like, talking with you or being with you because, you would say these things or do these things, but you seem to be much happier and I enjoy being with you more. So it might be something like that. It might be something that you're sleeping better or that you're eating better. You might find things like that you just become happier and so on. It might be because you're engaging in conversations with your Dharma brothers and sisters and finding that you're recognizing the points that are being discussed and you're able to contribute something to the conversation. So you might recognize that through your brothers and sisters. And then you might have a very direct conversation with your Lama, with your teacher, and be able to talk to them and say, well, here's what's happening. This is what I'm doing. And he may give you some feedback, as to, what you're doing good, why you're feeling this way. And maybe sometimes it's some correction. Sometimes it's that too. So it's a combination of all those things, I think. It's experiential.
Right.
All those things are experiential. You experience the changes. You experience the benefits.
I know that at some point he said, like, not to become attached to thoughts or to any experiences. Is there any point in the practice where you can get attached to the practice itself?
Well, of course, that's what I've been trying to mention that a few times. Sure. And we develop a pridefulness that I'm such a good meditator. I'm such a good practitioner.
Right.
Boy, I can recite these things really good. I'm memorizing these things. Wow, now I'm really good.
What do you do about that?
What? When you get pridefulness like that?
It's basically pridefulness, right?
Yeah. You develop your humility. You practice the 100-syllable mantra. That is the great equalizer. That is the purification mantra. There are practices that we do. The Nandro practices. We are going to, after we finish this book, we're going to get into the deity yoga practices of the Pearl Rosary book. It's 11 practices, and we're going to introduce those. We're going to talk about those. And then after that, then we're going to talk about the Nandro practices, because then you'll be ready to really engage in the Nandro practice. And the first of the Nandro practices is the refuge prostrations. And this is how you deal with humility. This is how you deal with pridefulness, by doing these prostrations, by bowing, by taking refuge in the 3 jewels. It cuts right through your arrogance. It cuts right through your ego. So it's through practice. The Dharma has all these techniques built into it. The Dharma is complete. So that's the answer to that question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Lance.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi. Hi. Thank you so much. This is really wonderful.
Thank you.
On that same note, in the beginning, can't we use attachment as a positive attribute to really well, to establish good discipline? Like if you're attached to a practice, you want to do it every day. Can we use it in that way, just to gain a good foundation for our practices?
Well, sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a practicality to it.
Okay. Yeah.
But when that practicality becomes an obsession,
Sure.
and you lose focus on what it is you're doing, and you're finding yourself attached to it, to become superstitious. You know, when we become superstitious, oh, I can't fall asleep at night if I don't recite this prayer. And I do it, I started doing it because I had nightmares. So now I'm afraid to stop reciting this prayer because I'm fearful that I'm going to have a nightmare. So you become superstitious. So that's a sign of attachment of a practice, what started out as a good aspiration now has become an impediment.
Sure, that makes sense. Okay.
So we always have to be analyzing. We always have to be looking at ourselves. We always have to be practicing the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path. We always have to be looking at these things. That's why we go through, you know, every year we go through these same teachings. You know, Buddhism 101 is not just done for our sake. It's done in the monasteries. It's done in the Dharma centers, because every year there's new people coming in, but also there's people who have been there year after year who get stuck in ruts and get a little bit, you know, obsessive, and they need the fundamentals to cut through. So we go through these over and over again.
Yeah, it's so helpful. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we should be grateful for these things. And even though you think that, oh, I don't need that, I'm so accomplished, those are easy things. I learned those things a long time ago. I don't need to pay attention to that. Well, that's arrogance and pridefulness. That's conceit. And why should you be doing it? You should be doing it, number one, for the benefit of the enlightenment of other beings. That's why you're doing it first. You're doing it for others. You're doing it there to support the Dharma, to support the Sangha, to support the Lama. Even if you could be teaching the course yourself, you are the embodiment of that teaching. You could teach it perfectly, but you're there to support the Dharma, to help other beings. You become a symbol of that. Part of that that's called right effort. And when we talk about the Eightfold Path, that's right effort. To always be there and the symbol of the right effort is a banner. There's a big banner like a flag, which represents victory. Victory over confusion, victory over defilement, victory over emotions. So there's a very practical answer to that. You see that?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions? Okay. So back to this. So, if your mind is resting evenly, do not apply effort. Meditating on Vipassana, your wisdom will become predominant, and your shamatha practice may suffer like a butter lamp in the wind, falling prey to distraction. Now, let me say that again. Meditating on Vipassana, your wisdom will become predominant, and your shamatha meditation may suffer like a butter lamp in the wind, falling prey to distraction. So the basis of what you came from, the shamatha, the calm abiding, and you get caught up in your wisdom, is what this is saying. You're getting caught up in your wisdom, becoming predominant. So at this time, switch your focus to shamatha practice. Saying, so this is exactly what we were just talking about. So I was saying, I'm getting too obsessive. I'm getting too caught up in my practice. I need to relax. I need to just practice calm abiding. So when your shamatha predominates, then you want to meditate on wisdom, vipassana. So in other words, if you're getting too calm or too, you're not progressing. You're just kind of plateauing in this, calmness, means that now you've got the time, now you should be trying to push yourself a little bit into some wisdom. There must be something that you want to refine, something that you have to purify, something that you have to examine for the first time, or something that you want to re-examine. So maybe it's getting into an old book, maybe it's getting into a new book. Maybe it's listening to a teaching, an old teaching. Maybe it's entering into a conversation or something like that. But it means pushing yourself a little bit to get out of your your shamatha if you're stuck in your shamatha. So in other words, it's saying that we can plateau at certain levels, and that does not necessarily mean a good thing. So all these things we need to be able to evaluate. We need to see where we are all the time. When you gain equal capacity at both shamatha and vipassana, then you will abide without fabrication in the bliss of the body and mind. So it comes very naturally. You do not experience bliss of body and mind. If you do not experience bliss of body and mind, at that point, reflect on all the world realms are illusory, like a dream or a mirage. Let me say that again. If you do not experience the bliss of body and mind, if you're not blissful, then reflect on the world realms as being illusory, like a dream, like a mirage. So you start thinking about phenomenal nature. You start thinking about this as it is, and you start thinking about the suffering that is there. You start thinking about the good things that are there, but you think of it in terms of its illusory nature, that it's all unreal. It may appear to be real. It may appear to be substantial. But like we've said before, all these things are mind fabrications. So when we're not feeling bliss, we do this. Then by doing this, by recognizing the dreamy nature, the illusory nature of all this, then we can now find our transcendence, and we reestablish our blissfulness. And then we think to ourselves, all these sentient beings have not realized profound truth, and so they remain totally afflicted by confusion and samsara. I will do whatever I can to ensure they realize the true nature, dharmata. So now we say that we're doing this for the better, for the enlightenment of other beings. We go back to our primary motivation, that we're doing this for all beings. And now we're looking at it, though, in a slightly different lens. We're looking at it through the lens of Buddha nature, because now we will have done practices. We will have had some experience, some glimpses, and now we find that there's this what we call dharmata, this true nature of all this, and we now do it from that point of view. That here I am, I'm reaching out my hand to help from a place that I now can be a guide, that I have been there and I can be a guide. Maybe I'm not perfectly stable in it. Maybe I'm not the best teacher at it at all, but I can help a little bit because I know what's there. I'm speaking from experience and not from vicarious experience. I'm not because I read it, it's because I experienced it. So everybody wants to get there in a hurry. I know that. Everybody wants to go to samadhi and so on. It takes time. So everybody, you guys are all young. You got a whole career ahead of you with being family people and your working careers, but you also have your spiritual career ahead of you. So don't rush, and it will all come. So thinking in this way, give rise to great compassion and emptiness, which is bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, the definition of bodhicitta is the unity, is the coming together of compassion and emptiness. Compassion and emptiness. Bodhicitta is like the wisdom, and compassion is the actualization of that wisdom. I'll say it again. Emptiness is like the wisdom, is realizing the empty nature of all this. It comes from wisdom, comes from experience, it comes from investigation, comes from all this. But then there's compassion, because the compassion comes when you're not there, when you're not wisdom, when you're suffering, you have compassion. And for others, you have compassion. You're actualizing the wisdom. You're actualizing the bodhicitta. So the two are the same. When we talk about emptiness imbued with all the perfect qualities, what do we mean? We mean emptiness inseparable with generosity, ethical discipline, patience, diligence, meditation. And we also mean emptiness inseparable with wisdom. So these are the the 6 perfections. So we talked about that a few weeks ago, the paramitas. So in this way, the primordial wisdom of omniscience, 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 omni means all. Psi is a Greek word that means to know. So omniscience, to know everything. The primordial wisdom of knowing everything, omniscience, the supreme emptiness, imbued with all the qualities, is brought to full realization through the skillful means of generosity and so forth, the 6 perfections. So all this is in this chapter. This has come from the book. So, the invitation is for you to read this book over and over and over again. So practically, from a practical standpoint, omniscient wisdom is perfected through skillful means. It does not arise only from wisdom. It comes from practice. There's wisdom and there's practice. Compassion is the practice. Wisdom is the study. The path of the bodhisattvas is therefore asserted to be imbued with both wisdom and skillful means. This is how the transcendent nirvana is attained. That is nirvana that does not get stuck in either extreme. So by the power of wisdom, bodhisattvas do not fall into samsara. By the power of skillful means, bodhisattvas do not fall into the absorption of nirvana. I'm going to say that again. By the power of wisdom, bodhisattvas do not fall into samsara. They don't fall down. And by the power of skillful means, the practice, the compassion, bodhisattvas do not fall into the absorption of nirvana. Now, why would you not want to fall into the absorption of nirvana? Because nirvana is the other side of samsara, thereby a dualism, a phenomenal dualism, getting caught up in dualism. It's conceptual. Nirvana is a concept. Samsara is a concept. We don't want to become so absorbed with nirvana that we develop that pridefulness. I'm in nirvana. Nothing can harm me. So we have to be able to cut through that. We have to know how to cut through that to non-conceptuality. That is why when we are actually meditating in transcendent wisdom, or resting the mind evenly in meditative absorption, we are not engaged actively in the skillful means practice, such as generosity and so forth, the sixth perfection. However, this wisdom comes about because of relying upon skillful means in the beginning and at the conclusion. So it's going in, it's sometimes studying, it's sometimes practicing. It's sometimes studying, it's sometimes practicing. When we look at our prayer book and we go to our dedication prayers on page 20, and here in the Dekorma prayer, and we remember this, we say this every day that we recite this. The last stanza, the last sentence of this prayer is continue and increase. Continue and increase through the study, through the practice, through the contemplation, and through the meditation until the end of samsara. So what that means is that we will end samsara for ourselves. We're not going to end this samsara. This samsara extends all the way through the cosmos. It's everywhere. We can't do that. We can't change that. We can't change the suffering on this planet. The only thing that we can change is our suffering, our samsara. That's the only thing that we can change. That's the only thing we can cut through. And we can cut through nirvana. So to do that, we continually study, we continually practice, we continually contemplate, and we continually meditate. The meditation comes very naturally. The familiarization, that gom, comes from the study, the practice, the contemplation. Then comes the exhaustion. And then we have the meditation. Then we have the transcendence. All the great teachers practice this, do this. The Dalai Lama continues to meditate every day. If you consider him to be the highest. If you consider Garchen Rinpoche, he meditates every day. And all the other lamas, all the other teachers do the same. So it says, such a bodhisattva will become a true child of the Buddha and will stand apart from all worldly beings. A bodhisattva abides in the realization of the Dharmata, the absolute nature of reality. That's the definition of Dharmata, the absolute nature of reality. And in the recognition of the Dharmadhatu, the basic space of all phenomena. So the Dharmata is, I mean, you can hardly explain it. You know, it says it here very simply, but it's something that you have to meditate on. It's something that you have to contemplate to be able to have an experience with it. But without that experience, we say the absolute nature of reality. That all this is here. We got all kinds of names for it. We got all kinds of concepts for it. And whatever it is, the totality of it, we call it this Dharmata. And then the recognition of the Dharmadhatu. The Dharmadhatu is two words. Dharma, which is the path, the speech of the Buddha, and the Dhatu means the realm, the Dharma realm. So in all this phenomenal nature, the Dharma is what gets you through it, is what it is. The Dharma is what explains it. And this is regarded as the basic space of phenomena. So here's all this phenomenal stuff that is all within this space. And that's the Dharmadhatu. And then that is subsumed by the Dharmata. It's a mind blower. So gradually, as the bodhisattva ascends through the higher bhumis and purifies the mind, he or she eventually awakens to unsurpassable, true, and perfect enlightenment. So as the bodhisattva ascends through the higher bhumis are the levels of the bodhisattva, and purifies the mind, purifies this temporary conceptual mind, and keeps purifying till the mind just becomes a concept. And then we awaken to unsurpassable, true, perfect enlightenment, liberation from the mind. So we say, may all sentient beings and activities be auspicious for the benefit of the enlightenment of all beings. So this is what we work for. So this is Vipassana. Any questions, comments?
Yes, sir. When you said we were all young, could you define that a little more accurately?
We're all young?
Yes. You said you were all young?
Well, that's a relative term, isn't it? When you, oh, I know what you mean now. Yes, well, I wasn't looking at you when I said that. Yes, I understand. Now, I was looking at these middle-aged youngsters here. Yes, Gil and I are in our sunshine years. Yes, I understand. But we are young too. We are young in our hearts and in our minds, and you know, we're children of the Buddha. You know, we're children of that if you want to call it an immortality. You know, of Amitayus Buddha. You know, so it's a state of mind being young, isn't it? Being old is a state of mind.
And hence, Lance, I get the feeling that this evening, the discussion around Vipassana is sort of a matter to you of life and death. I mean, you take this very seriously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very serious to me. It is. Yes, it's not. Yes, and it's not dire in that way, but it's very natural. You know, it's a very natural thing, and personally, I feel, you know, I'm blessed. And you are all blessed to be able to have this awareness, to have these teachings and so on, to have the resources for all this is a blessing. And what is a blessing? A blessing is a removal of negativity. It's a clarity. So yeah, I do get a little bit, you know, I can get real preachy about this. I don't want to be, you know, it's not my intention, but
It wasn't preachy. It was heartfelt passion.
Yeah.
I mean, that passion with a comp in front of it. So.
Yeah. And there's no easy shortcut to it. You know, people say, oh, well, you know, Milarepa achieved enlightenment in a single lifetime. Oh, Jigdan Sumgun achieved enlightenment in a single time. Oh, Buddha Shakyamuni achieved enlightenment in a single time, in a single lifetime. It appears that way. What we don't see is all the prior lifetimes that everyone has gone through, that we've all been part of. We're all part of all those lifetimes that we've all gone through. But those individuals there that we just mentioned, it was ripe for them. Their karma was ripe to achieve enlightenment in that particular lifetime. So this is how it's done. So this is what I get passionate about. Maybe this will happen for any one of us or all of us.
So basically, Lance, you can put effort into practice and meditation, but you're only going to achieve enlightenment when your karma is right.
When you are able to leave your karma alone.
Or your karma is exhausted, right?
Exhausted. That's what I mean. That when you can cut through it.
Right.
That you know that even though you're still living, you know, if you're still living, you still have dualistic nature. Gotchen Rinpoche still has stuff going on around him. He can still get sick. He's still going to die. But he's not attached to it. He has no aversion to it. And that's the difference. That's what we're trying to get to. As long as we're breathing, that respiration, breathing in, breathing out, that's a dualism. So the karma is the force that is moving us in these directions, but we can engineer ourselves with that karma to transform that karma.
Right.
You know, if we look at it as wind, we can say, oh, the wind is blowing. I can't walk forward because of the wind blowing me. But if you take a sail and you put it up, and now you know how to tack the sail, now you know how to use the wind to get to where you want to go because you've harnessed the wind. You've harnessed the karma. You're not a victim of it. You're a beneficiary of it. You were going to say something, Adrian?
No, I was just.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
This is good stuff. I mean, this is the best stuff. I'm so glad each and every one of you guys are here, you know, because it gives, you know, the Dharma an opportunity to grow in other people's lives and so on, in your lives. And being, you know, somebody like myself who wants to foster that, who wants to help that, it's inexpressible. It can bring tears to the eyes. You know, the blessing that is there for all of us.
Thank you, Lance. It's so meaningful.
Thank you. You're welcome. So, so next week we're going to start the chapter on how to meditate on the development stage of skillful means. So skillful means is another way of saying compassion. is another way of saying deity yoga, of being a perfect being. The perfect beings are the deities, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. They have attained enlightenment. And through generating our awareness of them, we become the embodiment of that. We become them. We generate that within ourselves. We begin to recognize those facets of bodhicitta within ourselves. So now we're ready to learn what that is. We've got all these building blocks, and now we're getting to the point of deity yoga, becoming in union with the deity. And deity, just to be clear, deity in this case does not mean a god. If you look deity up in the dictionary, it's likely to have one of its definitions as a god. This is not a god. In Buddhism, we regard it as an enlightened being, not a supreme being that is the creator of all this. We don't look at it that way. And the thing that differentiates the deities are their activities. They all have the same qualities of bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. But the way in which they actualize those qualities is what differentiates the different Buddhas. So sometimes we are compassionate. Sometimes we have wisdom. Sometimes we are healing. Sometimes we are purifying. Sometimes we are fearlessness. All these different activities of that Buddha nature. So we need to recognize that, and who better to recognize these but from the deities themselves. They become our teachers. So that's what we start to understand in the next chapter. Okay?
Lance,
Yes, sir.
you humble me.
Well, thank you. Well, we're all working together at this. And I'm so turned on by the people in the far-flung Sangha with Zoom. You know, I'm right now, I mean, we've got Adrian in Georgia, and Amanda in Alabama, and Eileen is in Texas, and some of us are in Maryland, some of us are in Virginia. Michael Frank, I imagine you might be down in Georgia, is that correct?
South Carolina.
South Carolina, okay,
Yeah.
terrific. So we've got, we've got a far-flung Sangha right here. And we've been partaking of Khenpo Samdup's teachings the past couple months. And he's got people in Canada, Michigan, and Washington State, and all of you, and all places in between, Maine. So and I'm really feeling very happy that we're all together with this. This is wonderful. Okay, so unless you all have any other questions or comments, we should do our dedication prayers. So Michael, Frank, just so you know, that in our practices, our teachings, and in our private practices that we do and everything, there's always three parts to them. The first part is we do our motivations. We set our intentions. So the first prayers that we read tonight, we're setting those intentions. We're doing this for the enlightenment of all other beings. And then we do the main practice or the main study, which in this case was this talk on Vipassana meditation. And then at the end, now we dedicate the merit and the accumulations of wisdom, whatever degree that is, we are dedicating that to the enlightenment of all other sentient beings. So this way, we're not holding on to it ourselves. We're not grasping it. We're giving it away. We're sharing it to other people. So this helps us to develop our humility, to develop our selflessness, to let go of our ego. So we say these dedication prayers. And if Michael, if you're interested, if you'll give me your email, if you'll send it to me, I'll send you a copy of this book through the email, and you can print it or you can use it on your computer or whatever. But if you can print it, would be really good. If you want me to mail you a copy, I can do that.
The other Michael sent me a link to Dropbox, so I think I can print it out.
Oh, great.
Thank you. Appreciate the offer.
Very good. Thank you. If you have any trouble with it, let Michael know or let me know, and that'd be great. All right, so we go to page 18, and we recite our lineage dedication prayers. So we say, Dorje Chang, Talopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Dormolorgan Popa, Pagmadrupa, and Lordri Kumpa. Please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all the Kagyu Lamas. By this virtue, may I achieve the all-knowing state, and may all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind. Where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddha who attained the three kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. Next page. By the virtues collected in the three times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Sri Kumpa, Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Om, Ah, Hom. Om, Ah, Hom. Om, Ah, Hom. May the body, speech, and mind of all the Buddhas and enlightened ones become inseparable from my body, speech, and mind. Thank you all very much tonight. Thank you.